The struggle for freedom was about democracy. Freedom is about democracy. If you're saying democracy is not important, then you're saying I must embrace autocracy or dictatorship, and I refuse to do that. It's the only person in the world that I might say I have a strong inclination to hate.
So Naledi Pandor is the chairperson of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. We came here to the foundation to have a chat with her and to talk about everything Freedom Day. Dr. Naledi Pandor, if I have to say to you that, democracy doesn't mean much in South Africa, what would you say to that?
I think it means a great deal. I really would disagree because I think you would have to, first of all, elaborate on why you say that.
I wouldn't be able to say it if I was not free.
Because when you have a debate, it's important that you debate on a basis of understanding what the other participant means. However, for me, the struggle for freedom was about democracy. Freedom is about democracy. Democracy is an important component. And really, it means the people participating in selecting who governs them, but also playing a role in shaping their society. So it's imperative, in my view, that's my own attitude, because if you're saying democracy is not important, then you're saying I must embrace autocracy or dictatorship, and I refuse to do that.
There was a study that said young people, if you guarantee me some basic rights, I'm okay with a dictator. And I read that and I got a bit scared. How would you diagnose that mentality? How would you respond to someone who says, I don't care if it's a dictator as long as I'm able to do what I want to do?
I think I would regard it as a failure on my part and that of other adults to explain to young people what society is about and how societies are shaped. Component. And really, it means the people participating in selecting who governs them, but also playing a role in shaping.
There was a study that said young people, if you guarantee me some basic rights, I'm okay with a dictator. And I read that and I got a bit scared. How would you diagnose that mentality? How would you respond to someone who says, I don't care if it's a dictator as long as I'm able to do what I want to do?
I think I would regard it as a failure on my part and that of other adults to explain to young people what society is about and how societies are shaped.
We talk about a rules-based order. So you have democracy and then you have this rules-based order. Did you ever imagine that we'd live in a world in 2026 where there's this assault on the rules-based order, that actually there's more and more world leaders and leaders of founders of democracy, countries that, the fathers of democracy, would just say, let's tear everything apart?
I think having studied history and being born in the 50s, one was aware that we had Nazism and that the Second World War ended in 1945, not too far from when we were born as children and grew up. So one living in a political family was aware of what had happened in the world. And so I do know that the worst can happen. But I think the point at which we are today is extremely frightening, primarily because we're such a modern world. We have such advanced technology. There's so much in knowledge that has been achieved that you would think, just given the intellectual opportunity, that one would understand logically that these things that are happening should not. But I believe to some degree it depends on whether you're educated sufficiently.
Do you think it's
And
education, or do you think
we may
it's
make assumptions
yeah?
that some leaders understand these things, and I don't think they have that larger appreciation which intellectual accomplishment helps you to have. You know, if you're very narrow, you may be educated, but it's not the kind of education I'm speaking of, where you're aware of the meaning of international law, where rapprochement is important, where concession, negotiation, compromise matter. You think power means you can do what you like, but actually, doing what you like is destructive eventually to that which you seek to achieve. And we need people who have an understanding that over reliance on the means of power can actually lead to self destruction. And that's what we're going to see.
We're seeing a bit of a madman on fire in the world.
We're seeing the beginning of a very serious decline, I think. And all one hopes for is that it will result in something better. So we look, for example, to Barcelona with hope, and we call on those leaders for consistency, that when they articulate in a weekend attachment to progressive ideals, it shouldn't just be for the weekend, it must be of a durable time. I worry that when you're in a conference, you make popular statements, and when you're outside, you're doing something different. But this time, I'm encouraged that something different is happening. And I think it's related to how awful the current conflict is, that it's marshaled people to say, I might be next. I better do something. We better build partnerships that will help us to respond should we confront the same.
27th of April 1994. What does that day jolt in your mind?
Standing in a queue for a very
Where?
long time in Cape Town, in Athlone, and people being very annoyed that I was wearing an ANC T-shirt because ANC wasn't popular
Yeah.
in Cape Town, and it was clear in those queues. It was clear we were not going to get an outcome of a majority win for the ANC, but we were present, and that was great. So you know, April 24 is 27 was hard work, was voting for the first time in my country as a full citizen, uh, was making sure we get voters to the voting stations, remembering to collect Mrs. Modise who needed a lift, or Ndate Thomas who had asked that we shouldn't forget him, and who, although he was unwell, didn't want to vote at home in his bed. He wanted to go and be in a line.
How do you think, as a young person, you must hold the memory and the legacy of Nelson Mandela?
I think I should regard him as someone who led to my freedom
Okay.
and who contributed to securing it. But I think I could only have that appreciation if I am taught what apartheid was. If I don't know apartheid, Mr. Mandela will just be some old gentleman who did some good. But if I understand that there was a systemic oppression that made young men and women like himself decide to stand up for the nation, on behalf of the nation, and to be ready to sacrifice everything, then I'll understand the real Mandela. But without that background, without understanding oppression, without understanding how people were treated, I won't really, I think, understand the man. I'll just see him as some superhero out there, and I'll think he has wings like Batman, and I won't appreciate the immense courage it took to sacrifice as he and those who worked with him did.
If I'm a young leader, so I was born as democracy came, and there's lots of people who watch who come who've been born long after even Mandela passed away. What are three things you think, if you want to be a leader in any sphere, in politics, in business, in civil society, what are three things you have to have, like non-negotiable?
Well, first, I think you must have some education. Second, I think you must understand history. And third, integrity. Fourth, you must be a hard worker. I can't stop
I
with
know
three.
that you are very, very hard worker. So if you had to change one thing in the world today, what would you do?
I'd strengthen the United Nations and give it enforcement capacity.
Who do you think should run the United Nations?
I would really hope we could find an amazing Latin American woman leader. I think the former Chilean president might be a good candidate, but we need a strong leader there.
What is the thing that makes you most hopeful about the world?
Young people,
And the thing that keeps you up at night?
leaders who can press nuclear buttons.
So we're going to play a quick game. It's going to be a democracy Tinder. So you're going to tell me if I have to give you a picture. We'll put the picture on the screen, right? So we'll put a picture of a world leader, and you're going to tell me if you're going to swipe right or left on them. Right is you approve of them, and left you disapprove of them, right? Let's start here. Nelson Mandela, left or right?
Oh, I approve of him, so it's right.
Okay. Indira Gandhi.
I approve of her as well. I think to be a woman leading in a society such as she lived in is admirable.
Angela Merkel.
I admired her because of the stances she took, particularly on Syrian refugees, against all sentiment in Germany.
Elon Musk.
I don't approve of him.
Keir Starmer.
Ah, no. I'm very disappointed in him.
Cyril Ramaphosa.
I approve of him. I think he's done some brave things.
Julius Nyerere.
Oh, totally approve.
Is that a crush?
Definitely.
Okay. Thabo Mbeki.
I approve of him.
Donald Trump.
No.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's the only person in the world that I might say I have a strong inclination to hate. I'm not like that, but
Pope Leo.
I'm cautiously approving.
And if you had to change one thing in the world today, what would you do?
I'd strengthen the United Nations and give it enforcement capacity.
Who do you think should run the United Nations?
I would really hope we could find an amazing Latin American woman leader. I think the former Chilean president might be a good candidate, but we need a strong leader there.
What is the thing that makes you most hopeful about the world?
Young people.
And the thing that keeps you up at night?
Leaders who can press nuclear buttons.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.